Hey guys, Jonas here. Welcome back to another video and welcome back to the final lesson of this section. So what we're going to do is to finally finish this project and we're going to finish building our very simple and cool game. All right. So in the previous sections, we did a few things, in the previous videos or the video, basically we, created our turtles, give them different colors. And we basically have it right now. If you take a look, we have it in a way that, for example, again, we're just setting it up in a way, and they're basically ready to go. Now we're actually going to create the code that is going to make these turtles actually move forward. Now this is a pretty important part of it. Obviously it's the majority of it, and I want you guys to pay attention because there are a few things that we actually got to do to make this happen. All right, so that's very, very important. We need to figure out a few things. For example, we need to figure out, how do we determine a winner? How do we actually get them to move? And how do we get them to move randomly, right? So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we need to actually find a way to determine if the game is running or if the race is on or not. Because if you think about it, when you run this game, at the moment when when the user hasn't is entering the their guess basically, the race is not running, right? So we got to make sure that the race only runs when the user clicks OK and gives the input basically, right? So that's the first thing we got to do. And the way we're going to do this is that, if you remember, we have been doing this for a lot of game like programs, which we're going to use a variable and just put it to true or false. So in this case, I'm just going to say is race on equals false. All right, so this case, basically what we're doing is that I'm saying, hey, the race is not running when we start, and then we're going to actually go ahead and write a code that is going to see if the user has entered their bet, and if that's the case, we're going to run the race. All right, so we're going to say if, and again we're going to use an if statement, so we're going to say if user bet, and that's very simple. So basically what we're saying is if this is true, right, and then we're going to say is race equals true. So basically, again, what is happening is that we start the program with is race on equals false, and then when the user enters their guess, which is this input, right, and then when that happens, we're going to run the code. Very simple, right? We're going to say, okay, change it to true. All right, so that's pretty much it for this part. All right, so now let's go ahead and actually make these things move. Okay, so how do we actually do this? Obviously, if you can, I'm sure you've already kind of thought about this a little bit. The way we're going to do this is we're going to use a while loop. All right, that's basically the core of how we're going to do everything, right? In almost any any game like program, or any program that's supposed to run something continuously. So this is basically what we're going to do. We're going to do a while loop. Okay, I'm going to say while is race on. So basically this is basically going to mean that when this while loop is going to run when this is going to be true. Again, if you take a look, we're using if statements and also while loops that basically don't have any statements, meaning that there is no while, for example, this is true, or while this is equal to that, or something like that. What we're doing is that we're using empty if statements or while statement. Basically this means that when you don't have an entry, basically there's nothing for you to compare this if with, for example, because we usually use if statement if user bit equals, for example, 10 or something like that. Again, that's how we usually that's how we usually go with these if statements. But when you use it empty like this, you're basically telling hey, as long as it's true, that's what you want to do. All right, so that's basically the same thing for the while loop. Well, I'm going to say while is race on, basically that means that this statement is true. What we're going to do is we're going to first run this thing, make sure this thing moves at a random distance. All right, so obviously because we're using random, we need to actually import random. So I'm just going to say import random. So this is the random module. All right, And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this is just like a a variable that we're going to define. So I'm just going to say rand distance equals. So again, this is the variable that is going to be the random distance that this these turtles are going to move, right? So we're going to say random dot rand int, right? And then we're going to go from the rand integers of 0 to 10. All right. So basically, again, this is the random distance that each turtle is going to run, okay, each time that they hop, in a sense. So, and then we're going to say turtle, and we're going to say forward. Basically, we're making this thing move forward. All right. And there you go. So we're going to say rand distance. There you go. So just like that, we're basically making this thing move forward. All right. So we're not done with this yet. I don't think this is actually going to run, if I'm right. Let's see. Let's see if this actually runs. Yeah, it's actually give us an error because it doesn't mean what turtle is technically, right? So we'll get back to this right now because there is a reason we have it this way. All right, so far we have things ready to go. Now, next step is actually we need to create a list that is going to keep all of these turtles. And the reason actually we want to do this is that right now what we have here is that we have this, we're defining turtle as Tim, but obviously we need to create a lot of different turtles, right? Like 6 of them basically. So what we need to do is we need to create a list that is going to store all of these different turtles in it. So I'm just going to say all turtles. Okay. There you go. And we're just going to have an empty list. And now what we're going to do is we're going to change Tim into the turtle. All right. So I'm just going to say new turtle. And what we're going to do, we're just going to replace all of these with, new turtle. All right. So, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say all turtles, and we're going to append basically these, let's just append new turtles to basically this list. So what is going to happen is that when this for loop runs, we're going to append 6 turtles into this empty list. All right, and these 6 turtles are going to be moving, right? They're gonna spawn, and again, these are gonna be separate objects, right? And separate like turtles, basically, in a list. All right, so that's basically what's going to happen. All right, so that is pretty much it for this part. Now, what we're going to do is we actually have to figure out one important factor here. The important factor is that we need to figure out, how do we actually determine a winner? That's a very important part, because if you think about it, the turtle, like we got the screen. If let's take a look at the screen size, right? We got 500 by 400, right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say, let's say the turtle hits a certain certain coordinates on the screen. And basically, that's how we're supposed to determine the winner. And if you remember, I talked about the coordinates and how they actually work in the turtle screen. And, we had the, 500 divided by 2 and then 400 divided by 2. There we got negative and positive coordinates. So basically, when we get to the left, let me see if I actually pull that draw. Let me see if I have that sketch that we did together. There you go. So, so what do we have here? If you remember, again, we have this the coordinates. So so what we need to do is we need to figure out when turtle hits this area, because if you just determine say, okay, when the turtle hits 500, they're going to be off this screen, right? So that's not going to be good, because we need to actually we want to see it reach the end, but not entirely, because we want to see who wins it actually. So we want to say if they reach this area, that means they won. All right, so that's technically it's like a 230. If you remember, again, we got minus 250, positive 250, so that would be like a 230 coordinate. All right, so basically what we're trying to say is that if the turtles reach like a 230, right, what is it, the width of the 230 on the coordinate on the page, that means they actually won. All right, so how do we actually do that? So the way we do this is that we again, if you refer back to the documentation of the turtle module, there is a way to actually do this, and that is using the x coordinate. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to start a for loop inside the while loop, and we're going to say for turtle, okay, in all turtles. All right, so that's basically this list. All right, so I'm going to say for turtle in all turtles, if turtle is x coordinate, all right, this is x core bigger than 230, basically that means that it has reached the end of the whole like page, basically, right? If it reached there, what we're going to do is we're going to say winning color. All right, so again we have the x coordinate, right? Like we say, okay, when we hit 230, what we want to do is winning color is going to equal turtle, and this is going to be pen color. I'm just using a lot of these methods that you are not familiar with, but again, it's just like kind of going back to documentation, which is going to be the x coordinate is the x coordinate of the object of the turtle, and then the pen color is basically the color of the turtle, right? So again, we talked about pen color. If you remember, we played with it a little bit here, right? Turtle color. So that's basically, it's kind of same thing. The turtle, if I'm right, has two colors. One's pen color, one's I believe is another one. It's like the shape, like it's the outline color, if I'm right. But anyways, so that's basically what it is. Again, basically with this, we're going to say if any of these turtles reach over 230, you're gonna take this variable and set it to the color of the winning turtle, right? So that's basically what we did. And then we're going to have another if statement and say if winning color equals user bet. So again, this is the user's guess, right? We're going to print and it's going to be if statement, you've won. Yeah, that's fine. All right, and then we're going to say else is going to be, well, that was not else. All right, so else is going to be, oh my god, it's not letting me. All right, come on. Else. Oh man. Sorry guys. All right, so else we're going to say print, and we're going to have an if. Oh, it's fine. We're just going to say you've lost. All right. So basically, what we're saying is that, hey, if you actually, the winning color equals, again, the winning color that we got here, which was the winner that reached over 230, right? The coordinate of 230, x coordinate. And if the winning color equals the bet, the user bet, right? Remember, this is the input that we received from the user, right? If that's the case, you're gonna print you won. If not, you've lost. All right, so that is pretty much it, right? Now, the last thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we end the race. That's very important. So that's what, and another thing we're going to add is we're going to say is race on equals false. So basically what's going to happen, again, I'm adding it under this because that's usually, the true statement, right? So if this is true, we're going to set this to false, so the race is not going to run anymore. And we're gonna say the winning colors and all that stuff. All right, so that is pretty much it, right? So now if I actually let's make sure we are in the right and this needs to be, I believe, forward a little bit. There you go. So again, this needs to be inside the if statement, by the way. Okay, just very, very important, right? Because you want it to run inside this. If I run this, let's say we choose a color red, and this should move. There you go. And let's see who wins. First of all, I think blue is going to win. There you go. So again, blue won, and I got the message that says you've lost. Perfect. So now this thing is working. See guys, so I know this was a little bit complex, but again, this is like kind of the type of thinking that you have to do. And one of the things that I can tell you is that if you want to become a good programmer, it's really, really important to practice. That's the most important thing. That is really, as I said many times, the difference between a good programmer and bad programmer. The practice is everything. And again, I know that I did a lot of this stuff off of my mind, but the thing is that when you know exactly what you're trying to achieve and you have the tools, you know the tools to achieve it. For example, how to use a for loop, how to use a while loop, while statement, like if statements and all that stuff. When you know it, you can just like kind of put these pieces together. So think about it, try to do this challenge by yourself once. Again, think about how you can move it, because one of the things I can tell you is that there are different ways to actually do these things. This isn't the only way to actually achieve what we achieved here. So it's really important to try to do it your own way as well, and see if you can maybe use a different type of coordinate or system to determine the winner, or you can have the turtles go from down to up. Again, you can just play around with it and create your own variations. But anyways, I'm gonna leave the final code for you guys in the resource section, so check it out for yourself. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, you can always come back to me if you have any more questions. If not, I'll see you in the next lessons and next videos.